South Africa. The name evokes images of vast savannas. The sun blazes over the grasslands. We see majestic animals roaming free. The land is ancient. It holds the secrets of time. This is South Africa, a land of beauty and history. From the dawn of humanity, South Africa has been a cradle of civilization. The echo of ancient footsteps can still be felt. The Khoisan people were the first to call this land home. They lived in harmony with nature. Their art adorned the walls of caves. Their stories were whispered on the wind. Over centuries, new people arrived. Bantu-speaking communities migrated south. They brought with them new skills and traditions. They cultivated the land and built settlements. The fabric of society became more intricate, cultures intertwined. The Khoisan were the first people to call South Africa home. They were nomads wandering the land in search of food and water. Their knowledge of the land was profound. They lived in harmony with nature, respecting its delicate balance. Theirs was a simple life, but it was rich in tradition and culture. The Khoisan were skilled hunters and gatherers. They knew the secrets of tracking animals. They could identify edible plants. Their survival depended on this deep connection with the land. They moved with the seasons, following the rhythms of nature. Their language was unique, filled with clicks and pops. It was as diverse and vibrant as the land they inhabited. They communicated through stories and songs. These tales, passed down through generations, kept their history alive. They were a people of the earth, their lives intricately woven into the fabric of the land. Their spirit was strong, their connection to the land unbreakable. For thousands of years, they thrived in this challenging environment. The Khoisan left behind a legacy that echoes through time. Their stories are etched onto the walls of caves, whispered on the wind. They are a people of art, their creativity inspired by the world around them. In the silence of the caves, we can still hear their voices. Their rock art is a window into their world. The paintings depict animals, hunters, and dancers. They tell stories of hunts and rituals. The colors are vibrant even after thousands of years. Each image is a brushstroke of their existence, a glimpse into a vanished world. The paintings are not mere decorations, they are sacred expressions of the Khoisan's beliefs and traditions. They tell of their connection to the spirit world, their reverence for nature. These images hold deep meaning, even if we cannot fully grasp their significance today. They are a reminder that the Khoisan were not just survivors, but artists and storytellers. Their legacy is a precious gift, a reminder of the enduring power of human creativity. It is a testament to the strength and resilience of a people who lived in harmony with nature. Section 3. A Legacy in Stone. The Khoisan rock art is found throughout southern Africa. These ancient galleries are scattered across the landscape, hidden in caves and rock shelters. Each site is a sacred space, a place where the veil between the past and present feels thin. The paintings are remarkably well preserved. The dry climate and the shelter of the caves have protected them from the elements. The colors are still vibrant, the lines still sharp. It is as if the artists had just laid down their tools. These sites are more than just tourist attractions. They are places of pilgrimage, where people come to connect with their heritage. They are reminders of the deep history of this land, a history that stretches back thousands of years. The Khoisan may no longer roam these lands freely, but their spirit lives on. It is present in the whispers of the wind, in the ancient paintings that adorn the cave walls. Their legacy is etched in stone, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Their story is an integral part of the rich tapestry of South African history. Section 1. The Bantu Migrations. Around 2,000 years ago, the landscape of South Africa began to change. A new chapter was being written in its history. From the north, Bantu-speaking people began to arrive. They journeyed southwards, seeking new lands and opportunities. Their arrival would have a profound impact on the region. The Bantu migrations were not a single event. They took place over many centuries. Groups of people moved slowly, bringing with them their families, possessions, and traditions. They were farmers, herders, and skilled artisans. They carried with them the knowledge of ironworking. This skill would prove crucial in their new environment. As they migrated, they encountered different environments. They adapted to the challenges of the land. They learned to cultivate new crops. They found ways to live in harmony with the existing inhabitants. The Bantu migrations were a testament to human adaptability and resilience. They were driven by a search for a better life. Their arrival brought a new wave of cultural and technological innovation to southern Africa. The land would never be the same. Their story is an integral part of the rich tapestry of South Africa's past. The Bantu-speaking people brought with them new ways of life. They introduced agriculture to southern Africa. They cultivated crops like sorghum, millet, and beans. These crops flourished in the fertile soil. This agricultural revolution transformed the way people lived. They were skilled herders too. They brought with them cattle, sheep, and goats. These animals provided them with meat, milk, and hides. Livestock became a symbol of wealth and status. The land echoed with the lowing of cattle and bleating of sheep. Ironworking was another key innovation. Bantu artisans crafted tools and weapons from iron. These tools made agriculture more efficient. Iron weapons gave them an advantage in warfare. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer became a familiar sound. These new technologies and ways of life had a dramatic impact on the social and political landscape. They led to the development of more complex societies. They laid the foundation for the rise of powerful kingdoms. The Bantu migrations were a turning point in South African history. The arrival of Bantu-speaking people led to significant changes in the South African landscape. They cleared forests for agriculture, established villages and settlements, transforming a land once sparsely populated and now dotted with human activity. They shaped the environment to meet their needs. Their villages became centers of social and economic life. Families lived together in homesteads, sharing resources and supporting each other. They developed intricate social structures and hierarchies where elders held wisdom and authority, and craftsmen honed their skills. Trade networks emerged, connecting communities across long distances. They exchanged goods, ideas, and stories, enriching their cultures and leading to the spread of new technologies and knowledge. South Africa was becoming increasingly interconnected. Their arrival marked a new era in South Africa, and their legacy lived on in the cultures and traditions of their descendants. The land bears witness to their presence, a testament to their enduring impact on the region. The 17th century marked a turning point in South Africa's history. From across the vast ocean, European ships appeared on the horizon. These were not explorers seeking new lands, but traders in search of profit. The Dutch East India Company, a powerful force in the world, sought to establish a foothold in the southern hemisphere. In 1652, Jan van Riebeck, a Dutch merchant, landed at the Cape of Good Hope. His mission was simple: establish a refreshment station for ships on their way to the East Indies. The Cape, with its temperate climate and abundance of fresh water, was ideally situated. However, the Dutch were not content with a mere outpost. They sought to expand their influence, claiming land for themselves. The indigenous Khoisan people, who had lived in harmony with the land for centuries, were seen as obstacles to be removed. The clash of cultures was inevitable. The arrival of the Europeans would forever alter the course of South African history. The seeds of division and conflict were sown, setting the stage for centuries of struggle and oppression. The Dutch settlers, known as Boers, came from a world vastly different from that of the indigenous people. The Boers were farmers, accustomed to owning land and livestock. They sought to replicate their European way of life in this new land. This desire for land and resources would bring them into direct conflict with the indigenous population. The Khoisan, nomadic hunter-gatherers, did not share the European concept of land ownership. They believed in communal ownership and moved freely across the land. This fundamental difference in worldview led to misunderstandings and tensions. As the Dutch colony expanded, so too did the demand for labor. The Boers began to enslave the Khoisan people, forcing them to work on their farms. This exploitation, coupled with the introduction of European diseases, decimated the Khoisan population. Their traditional way of life was shattered. The clash of worlds had devastating consequences for the indigenous people. It marked the beginning of a dark chapter in South African history, characterized by dispossession, oppression, and the erosion of ancient cultures. Section 3. The Seeds of Division. The Dutch were not the only European power with their eyes on the Cape. In 1795, during the Napoleonic Wars, the British seized control of the Cape Colony. This shift in power further complicated the already tense situation in South Africa. The British brought with them their own set of values and policies, including the abolition of slavery. While this move was welcomed by many, it further alienated the Boers, who relied heavily on slave labor for their agricultural enterprises. Seeking to escape British rule and maintain their way of life, many Boers embarked on the Great Trek, a mass migration eastward into the interior of South Africa. This movement, driven by a desire for independence and land, would have far-reaching consequences. The arrival of the British and the subsequent Boer expansion deeper into South Africa set in motion a chain of events that would shape the nation's destiny. The seeds of division, sown by colonialism and the clash of cultures, would continue to grow, ultimately leading to conflict and the rise of a system of racial segregation that would come to define South Africa for much of the 20th century. Section 1. The Rise of the Zulu. The interior of South Africa was a land in flux. Tribes competed for resources and dominance. Change was coming. A new power was emerging. The Zulu, a relatively small tribe, would rise to prominence. Their impact would be felt far and wide. The Zulu were skilled warriors. They lived in a harsh environment. Only the strong survived. They learned to rely on each other. They developed a strong sense of unity. This unity would be their strength. Shaka Zulu emerged as a leader of great vision and ambition. He was a brilliant military strategist. He introduced new weapons and tactics. He transformed the Zulu army into a formidable force. His name would become legendary. Under Shaka's leadership, the Zulu embarked on a period of conquest. They absorbed neighboring tribes. They expanded their territory. They became the dominant power in the region. Their rise would have a profound impact on the balance of power in southern Africa. Section 2. Shaka, a king and a warrior. Shaka Zulu was more than just a warrior king. He was a skilled administrator. He reorganized the Zulu state. He established a centralized government. He created a system of laws and justice. He was determined to build a strong and lasting kingdom. He implemented military reforms that transformed the Zulu army. He introduced the short stabbing spear, and a larger, more robust shield. These innovations gave his warriors a decisive advantage in close combat. He trained his warriors relentlessly, instilling in them discipline and a fierce loyalty. Shaka's reign was marked by both expansion and consolidation. He understood that true power lay not just in conquest, but also in effective governance and the loyalty of his people. He created a system of age regiments, where young men were grouped together for military service and social bonding. This fostered a strong sense of camaraderie and national unity. Shaka's reign was not without its shadows. His methods were often ruthless. He was known for his brutality, but his legacy as a military genius and nation builder remains undisputed. He transformed the Zulu from a small tribe into a powerful kingdom. He left an indelible mark on the history of southern Africa. Section 3. Legacy of the Zulu Kingdom. Shaka's reign came to an end in 1828 when he was assassinated by his half-brothers. However, the Zulu kingdom he forged continued to exert its influence. His successors, Dingane and Cetshwayo, faced new challenges. The arrival of the Boers, trekking north from the Cape, brought them into direct conflict with the Zulu. The Boers, also known as Voortrekkers, were determined to carve out their own independent republics in the interior. This brought them into direct confrontation with the Zulu, who saw the Boers as invaders encroaching on their land and cattle. The clashes between these two groups would have far-reaching consequences. The Battle of Blood River in 1838, where a small force of Boers defeated a much larger Zulu army, marked a turning point. The Boers' victory, attributed to their superior firepower and strategic use of wagons as mobile fortifications, shattered the myth of Zulu invincibility. Despite this defeat, the Zulu kingdom continued to resist colonial encroachment. The legacy of Shaka Zulu lived on in the spirit of resistance displayed by his people. The Zulu kingdom, with its military prowess and centralized government, left an indelible mark on the history of southern Africa. Their story is one of courage, adaptation, and the struggle for survival in the face of expanding empires. Section 1. The British Dominion. The sun rose over southern Africa, casting long shadows over a land in transition. The balance of power was shifting. The British, with their growing empire, sought to consolidate their control over the Cape Colony and its surrounding territories. They saw the region as strategically important, a gateway to the riches of the East. The discovery of diamonds in 1867 near the Vaal River and gold in the Witwatersrand region in 1886 fueled British imperial ambitions. These discoveries brought a flood of prospectors, fortune seekers, and adventurers to the region, further upsetting the delicate balance of power. The British expansion brought them into increasing contact, and often conflict, with the Boers, who had established their own independent republics, the South African Republic, Transvaal, and the Orange Free State in the interior. These republics fiercely defended their independence and their way of life, setting the stage for a clash of ambitions that would have profound consequences for the region. Section 2. The Boer Wars, a clash of ambitions. Tensions between the British and the Boers reached a boiling point, igniting the First Boer War in 1880. The Boers, skilled marksmen and tacticians, fighting on their own land, inflicted early defeats on the British, much to the surprise of the world. However, the British, with their superior numbers and resources, eventually prevailed, reasserting their dominance over the Transvaal. The peace that followed was uneasy, a truce rather than a resolution. The discovery of gold in the Witwatersrand led to a new wave of British immigration and economic investment in the Transvaal, further straining relations with the Boer government. The Second Boer War erupted in 1899, a far more brutal and protracted conflict that would engulf the region for 3 years. Section 3. A nation forged in conflict. The Second Boer War was a watershed moment in South African history. The Boers, initially successful with their guerrilla tactics, ultimately succumbed to the overwhelming might of the British Empire. The war left deep scars on both sides, shaping the political and social landscape for generations to come. The British, victorious but shaken by the Boer resistance, sought to consolidate their control over the region. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was established, uniting the Cape Colony, Natal, Transvaal, and the Orange Free State under British rule. However, the Union was built on a foundation of racial segregation. The black African majority were largely excluded from the political process, their land rights restricted, and their economic opportunities limited. The seeds of apartheid, a system of racial segregation that would come to define South Africa for much of the 20th century, were sown in the ashes of the Boer Wars. The Boer Wars, while a tragic chapter in South African history, also fostered a sense of Afrikaner nationalism among the Boer population. This sense of identity, forged in conflict and hardship, would have a profound impact on the political landscape of the newly formed Union and contribute to the rise of Afrikaner nationalism and the implementation of apartheid in the decades to come. Section 1. A shadow descends. The year 1948 cast a long shadow over South Africa. The National Party, fueled by a potent mix of Afrikaner nationalism and racial prejudice, rose to power. Their victory marked a turning point, a descent into a darkness that would last for decades. The new government wasted no time in implementing its ideology of racial separation. Apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning separateness, became the law of the land. It was a system designed to entrench white supremacy and relegate the black African majority to the margins of society. The pillars of apartheid were many and merciless. The Population Registration Act categorized every citizen by race. The Group Areas Act carved up cities and towns, forcing people to live in designated areas based on their race. Black South Africans were stripped of their citizenship, their movements restricted, their voices silenced. The world watched in disbelief as South Africa descended into a pariah state. The very notion of human equality, so hard won in other parts of the world, was trampled underfoot. But within South Africa, the spirit of resistance was flickering, soon to ignite into a beacon of hope. Section 2. The Walls of Separation. The apartheid government constructed a complex and oppressive system of control. Black South Africans were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. They were denied basic human rights. Their lives were circumscribed by a web of unjust laws designed to keep them powerless. Education, the cornerstone of any just society, was distorted to serve the apartheid agenda. Black children were taught a curriculum designed to limit their horizons and prepare them for a life of servitude. Universities were segregated, denying black students access to quality education. The economy was rigged to favor the white minority. Black South Africans were relegated to low-paying jobs, denied opportunities for advancement, and trapped in a cycle of poverty. The gap between rich and poor, black and white, grew wider with each passing year. The walls of separation, erected by a racist regime, cast a long shadow over the land. But the human spirit, like a seed pushing through concrete, found ways to resist, to dream of a different future. Section 3. A World Condemns. The international community, initially slow to react to the horrors of apartheid, began to take notice. The Sharpeville Massacre of 1960, where police opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing 69 people, shocked the world. Images of the carnage beamed across the globe, galvanized opposition to the apartheid regime. The United Nations condemned apartheid as a crime against humanity. Sanctions were imposed, isolating South Africa from the international community. Sporting events were boycotted, cultural exchanges curtailed, and investment discouraged. The world was turning its back on South Africa. Within South Africa, the resistance movement gained momentum. The African National Congress, led by Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and Oliver Tambo, spearheaded the struggle against apartheid. They organized protests, strikes, and acts of sabotage, challenging the regime at every turn. The world watched and waited as the struggle for freedom in South Africa intensified. The outcome was far from certain. The apartheid regime, armed and ruthless, seemed unyielding. But the seeds of change sown in the face of oppression were taking root, nourished by the courage and sacrifice of millions. Section 1. Dawn of a New Era. The year 1994 dawned bright with promise over South Africa. The old order, the oppressive regime of apartheid, was crumbling. Decades of struggle, of sacrifice, and unwavering resistance had brought the nation to this moment. A new era was dawning, an era of hope and reconciliation. The world watched in awe as South Africa held its first free and fair elections. People of all races, once segregated and divided, stood together in long queues, their faces etched with anticipation, their hearts filled with a hope they had dared not dream before. The impossible was becoming reality. Nelson Mandela, the icon of the anti-apartheid struggle, the man who had endured 27 years in prison for his beliefs, emerged as the nation's first black president. His election was a victory, not just for South Africa, but for humanity itself. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to fight for freedom and equality. The journey ahead would be challenging. The scars of apartheid ran deep, the divisions etched into the very fabric of society. But on that historic day, as the world celebrated, South Africa took its first steps towards healing, towards building a nation where all its people could live together in peace and harmony. Section 2. A Legacy of Hope. South Africa's transition to democracy was a beacon of hope, not just for Africa, but for the world. It showed that even in the face of overwhelming odds, even after decades of oppression, change was possible. It reaffirmed the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and strive for a better future. The road since 1994 has not been easy. Challenges remain: poverty, inequality, and the legacy of a fractured past. But South Africa has shown remarkable resilience. It has embraced forgiveness and reconciliation, seeking to build a nation where all its citizens have an equal stake. The story of South Africa is a testament to the power of courage and perseverance. It is a story that reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can triumph over adversity. It is a story that continues to inspire the world, a beacon of hope for a future where equality, justice, and human dignity prevail. South Africa's journey is a powerful reminder that change is possible, that hope can blossom even in the most barren of lands. It is a legacy that belongs not just to South Africa, but to all who dare to dream of a more just and equitable world.